Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday, October the 16th. We're happy to have you here on the Prime Time Show. Will Levis made a strong declaration, today at his press conference about where he is right now as far as his confidence level. And so you will hear from the Titans quarterback on that here in just a second. We will also get to Calvin Ridley, who spoke in the locker room today. It's the first time that he has spoken, obviously, since Sunday when he had strong comments about what was going on after a game where he was targeted 8 times but came away without a single reception. We'll do that. We'll do rising and falling. We got a lot of good stuff for you throughout the course of the evening tonight because despite being 1-4, despite it being week 6 and trending closer and closer towards the NFL's trade deadline, the season is not over. There is still a lot of progress that could be made. There's still a lot of things that you can learn about your football team because whether the pieces and parts that are here now will be here at the end of the year, that's a discussion to be had. But there are things worth paying attention to. And Will Levis, for the time being, is one of them. So we'll talk about that tonight and Ridley and rising and falling and all the good stuff that we have to share with you. Before we get started, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch in the comment section. If you want to get involved, we would be happy to have your participation. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you're on YouTube or Twitch, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend to do the same, and we would appreciate your sharing the program around. Once you've done that, more of you guys will trickle in here as we get up and rolling, and we'll talk about this quarterback and whether you believe him when he says he's in a pretty good spot right now from a mental standpoint. Anyway, welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. Welcome. Happy to have you. If you're new to the show, I don't know what you're doing here at 1-4, but it's okay. We're happy to have new faces if you are new to the show. And we are proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, get up to $100 on your no danger first wager. Too late to get in your bets on the NLCS, which is going on right now between the Dodgers and the Mets, but it is not too late to bet on all your favorite sports at zensports.com. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. And, of course, TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch, where your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated. TrueMav Fitness is your spot to get in the best shape possible. So, first day of practice, Bills week ahead. We have not talked about the Amari Cooper trade. Tuesday nights are my night off of prime time, and of course the Devontae Adams trade and Amari Cooper trade happened since the last time that you and I have had the opportunity to discuss. And I don't know if Sam covered that as a part of his discussion last night. Bert is shaking his head no, but it's worth noting because Amari Cooper got traded where? He got traded from the Browns to the Bills. It was Amari Cooper and a 2025 6th-round pick, if memory serves, for a 2025 3rd-round pick and a 2026 7th-round pick going back to Cleveland. So Bills get a legit wide receiver 1, though he hasn't had the best season. He is still leading the Browns in receiving and had 2 touchdown receptions on the season, which if you paid attention to the Browns at all, 2 touchdowns is like water in the desert. They are the only team in the NFL that is not, including you, by the way, the only team. 31 other teams have made it to the 20-point mark this season. The Cleveland Browns have not. So them, the Jags, the Raiders, who are all at the bottom of their respective divisions, said, all right, we're selling parts. Would the Titans do it even if they win out? It's possible because they would still only be 3-4 at the deadline. But 3-4 is a different discussion. But they would have really, really tough opponents in the Bills on the road and the Lions on the road. But, of course, the Bills are up first. So we start the week of practice as we always do. We watch practice. Brian Callahan speaks before practice, and then we await for the quarterback afterwards. And, of course, as I've talked about with you guys a million times over, every time we talk to the quarterback, in fact, this may have been the first week since week 1 that we were asking the quarterback about his upcoming opponent. You may ask why. Why wouldn't you ask Will Levis about what it is to face the Green Bay Packers defense or going against a divisional rival in the Indianapolis Colts? Why wouldn't you ask the quarterback about his upcoming opponent? Well, because we've been too busy asking questions about, hey, man, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? It's become a bit of a psyche eval every time he gets up there in front of us. And I'm sure that doesn't, just end at the press conferences. It's something that it is impossible for us to get a read on what's in Will Levis's head, but we do have to ask questions to try and understand what this player is going through and why this player is not performing, and if it is just him or if it is something larger that we're not able to see. Either way, Will Levis's press conferences sound like a psyche eval. So today, he was asked right out of the gates. I believe Jill Jelnick of Fox 17 asked him the first question, and it was specific to his confidence level. So before we hear from Will Levis, and you will hear from Will Levis here in just a second, I want to ask you this question. He technically does have a win on the season, does Will Levis. The Miami win is technically a win in the column for Will Levis's total QB win-loss record, career win-loss record. Now, of course, that's nonsense because he left halfway through the first quarter. He was 3 of 4 for 25 yards and a pick in Miami before he was replaced by Mason Rudolph, who maybe not necessarily went out there and won the game, but he didn't lose the game the way that the starting quarterback has basically every time he's trotted out there. So Will Levis does technically have a win on the season, but we understand that that's hollow. He technically hasn't won a game since the Carolina Panthers last year, which seems like 1,000,001 years ago at this point, seeing everything that's come to pass since then. So he himself has not been responsible, has not quarterbacked this team to a win since the Carolina Panthers visited Nissan Stadium in 2023. So we ask him about his confidence and everything that's going on. His stat line, as you may well know, is his completion percentage is up, but that's about the only thing that's up. 66.4 completion percentage, 699 yards in 5 games, which is pretty gross. 5.6 yards per attempt, which is pretty gross. 5 touchdowns to 7 picks and 3 fumbles lost, 10 total turnovers. He leads the league in terms of individual turnovers lost this season. So he's a struggle. We understand this. And the question that I'm going to ask you before I let you hear from the quarterback, your Two Rivers Ford take, and as always, your Two Rivers Ford take is presented by the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. They will greet you as if you are family. That's just the way that they do business. Over 4 decades here in Middle Tennessee, Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com, like I mentioned. The question that I'm going to ask you is this: fair or foul? Will Levis, at this point, deserves more time to turn his performance around. Hasn't won a game this season. Hasn't won a game since Carolina last year. Hasn't quarterbacked the team to a win since Carolina last year. He technically has a win on his record in 2024. He did not beat the Jags. That was Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. He does have the Falcons and the Panthers wins last year. What am I forgetting that Will Levis? Oh, the Dolphins. He has the Dolphins win as well. So Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, but that's been a considerable amount of time since Miami. I guess Miami would be the most recent one. Forgive me. I said Carolina. It was Miami, the most recent win that Levis has quarterbacked the team to, if I'm not mistaken. I believe both of those games were in the month of December. I can't remember off the top of my head. Bert, if you would mind, or if somebody would mind correcting me on that to tell me which game came later in the season, whether it was the Dolphins or the Panthers. Either way, it's been a while, right? December of last year at minimum is the last time that this quarterbacked a team to a win. So, fair or foul? Does he deserve more time to turn his performance around? I think that there's a couple layers to this question, and I'll answer that here in just a second. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is how you can interact. Deborah Gale Cook says Jacksonville. No, that was Ryan Tannehill, because remember, Will Levis got hurt in the Texans game, I want to say. Texans game towards the end of the year, around New Year's Eve is when that happened. Miami was the last one in December, Halo says. Thank you, Halo, for catching me, for correcting me on that. So the last time he quarterbacked this team to a win was Monday Night Football in Miami in December of 2024. So with all of that, fair or foul, 6 weeks in, he's still struggling. He's the biggest issue that they have right now. Does he deserve more time to turn this thing around? My question, let's see. Chosen says foul, considering they spent a lot of money to help him succeed. Took his arm talent into consideration. He has a better setup than other quarterbacks who were in his shoes. That's absolutely true. Ben Hall says, I guess fair, but I don't believe this staff is capable of turning anything around. So you're putting it more on the staff for not being able to fix the quarterback. And if anything, he looks worse than he did last year, which is something that we have talked about at considerable length on the radio show. Abe Harrell says, give him the year to suck so we can draft a quarterback, or he might turn it around. Well, that's, you're going to live and die with the Will Levis experience that way. And, there's probably some truth to that. If he crashes out, you get a top draft pick. If he shows some life and makes considerable improvements here in the next, we'll say in the next couple of weeks, then maybe you say, okay, it's not dead yet. The experiment continues, and you don't have to make it. Nobody's making you make a determination in week 6. Halo says, is this the same story as Mariota? No, not even close. Not even close. You had a passing game with Marcus. Marcus was a second overall draft pick. He was somebody who, before the broken leg, was an extremely viable player. He was somebody who, even in moments, had more juice than, and I want to say more juice because Levis obviously has a more live arm, but Mariota was able to quarterback this team to, I know that they won only 3 games in his rookie season, but then they went 9-7. No, did they have 3 9-7s with Vrabel in the first year that they made the postseason under Mike? Because they were just a win away. Yeah, 18. No, so he had 2 9-7 seasons before he was ultimately benched for Ryan Tannehill in 2019, and then Tannehill obviously took the team from 2-4 to the AFC Championship game. Mariota also won playoff games, right? He got them to Kansas City. They did the improbable, which is beat Kansas City. They got bounced by the New England Patriots, and they got bounced pretty soundly, but Marcus Mariota gave his team chances to win, and that was even after the broken leg, right? This is a totally different situation. Mariota had success. Will Levis has not had a semblance of Marcus Mariota's success. And what ultimately damned Marcus was, the accumulation of injuries behind an offensive line that was not good enough to keep him safe. And certainly with his style of play, did not lend itself to longevity either, especially once he had the nerve damage in his elbow, the ulnar nerve injury where he couldn't feel remember the half glove that he used to wear? He had the half glove on his ring finger and pinky finger because he couldn't feel them, which makes it really hard to grip the ball if you're a quarterback. Trying to make things happen, that would make your job infinitely more difficult. So no, this is not anywhere close to similar to Marcus's situation. The only thing that's similar between Levis and Marcus Mariota is the fact that they both wore number 8 for the Tennessee Titans. Abe says trade for Hendon Hooker. Why? The Hendon Hooker thing is so stupid. I don't understand at all. Other than Vols fans love their Vols, and that's fine. You're entitled to love your favorite college football players, but he's a backup quarterback. He has 0 NFL experience. If you already have a better, more proven backup quarterback in Mason Rudolph, and Hendon Hooker is not going to be. I mean, he's not on any kind of trajectory to be a starter in this league. I know he's sitting behind Jared Goff, who is one of the best quarterbacks in football right now, but no, the Hendon Hooker thing is not viable. Hendon Hooker doesn't have the same struggles as Will Levis, but for the same reason that guys like Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman haven't succeeded, that Vols offense has plenty of questions about whether those skills translate from one level to the next. So the Levis, or excuse me, the Hooker thing is not something that I'm willing to consider. But with everything that they're trying to figure out, Brian Callahan made some comments today that were, pretty jarring to the fan base, other than him sounding pretty depressed about where he is in this. Now, whether or not he's actually depressed is a different matter, but I saw some people. I bailed out of the press conference during the radio show. We always carry them live on Wednesdays, and I said, enough of this. This is not improving. I said today that we're not going to carry any more Wednesday press conferences on the radio show. Only the Monday post-game reaction press conferences until such time as they prove that they're viable. Because he said today something to the effect of, as Eric Davis points out, what do you think about the coach today saying he's still trying to figure out what we do? I don't think he said do good, because that would be horrible grammar. What you do well is the proper term. What the F? It's week 7. Coach will be a bust. This coach will be a bust. Well, what do I think about that? I think he's right. I don't know what they do well. Do you know what they do well? Like, I'm still trying to. Well, okay, I know that their defense is good, right? Their defense is. I don't think their defense is as good as it looks on paper. I think their defense is about to get some real tests here in the next month of the season. With what do you have? You have Bills on the road. You have Detroit on the road. You are home for New England, which should be a winnable game. So help me God if it's not. But then you host teams like the Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals are further down the line, and they have their second win of the season right now as they try and even things out a little bit. But yeah, your schedule does not get considerably easier here in the next couple of months at this point. So yeah, I also am trying to figure out what it is the hell that they do well. James Patrick Ellis says, Uncle Buck, what's the deal with this team? They're a bad football team. They are a talented team that is bad at football collectively, right? And those things shouldn't be, right? If you have enough talent, fair to assume that you might be a good team at some point, but they haven't been a good team through this. And there's a million different reasons why. The greatest reason for this is that their quarterback has struggled. Their quarterback has struggled in the system. I don't think the quarterback fits the system well. I don't know if the coaching staff knows how to adapt to the quarterback, given that they have come in specifically with designs to run this system. And so they've got good players, but it's a bad team. Those things should be rectified by week 6, but they're not. And so now you're trying to figure it out. So all this to say, does Levis deserve more time to iron his performance out? That's the question. Your Two Rivers Ford take, as I mentioned. I'll let you hear from Will Levis here in just a second, right after I remind you that True Math Fitness in the Gulch is where you go for the best workout here in Middle Tennessee. TrueMathFitness.com for that first workout free. No workout ever recycled or repeated. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for more information today. All right. So what do they do well at this point? I don't have the answer to that question. They are a solid running football team. They're not the best running football team. The best running football team right now is the Baltimore Ravens because they've got the leading rusher in the NFL and an MVP candidate who is on pace to get. I don't know if he's going to do 2,000 yards again, but he might. He really might. He might be doing. He's on pace for 1,995 yards. I think I saw today on from Field Yates on Twitter. So he could very well do 2,000 yards again, and that will make people very upset. But what is the time frame for you guys for Will Levis? Does he deserve more time? The question is fair or foul. If you would like to get involved. So Will Levis today was asked about his confidence from Jill Jelnick of Fox 17. This is how the quarterback responded.
Hi, I feel like it's always been that. I think after the game I made the comment. I found myself in a tough spot after the Miami game, just dealing with the injury and all that. And I was disappointed how I let myself dip for that brief period of time. But I feel like I'm back, and I'm not going to let myself lose that again. I think the second you lose that edge, it's hard to come back from, and you got to just maintain that to go out there and have the confidence and mindset to just do what you're capable of. So that's what I'm making sure that I remind myself every day, regardless of what my box score or stat line looks like, that I know who I am at the end of the day. Numbers or whatever else, whoever anyone says has to say, doesn't define me.
What do you find that you're building on, Will? What are some things that you look at in your numbers or your game or whatever and say, okay, I see a little bit of progress here and I can build on that?
I'd like to hit some more deep shots. I mean, I feel like my deep ball accuracy is one of my strong suits, and it just hasn't showed up on tape this year, and that's disappointing for me. So just finding ways to put myself in a better position to be able to get those balls off and just making those plays. I'm not going to search for those and try to push and throw it up when it's not necessary, but the lack of completions down the field is got to get that fixed.
I guess, are there some things that you're doing well right now, maybe even in relation to last year?
What am I doing well, you're saying?
Right, exactly.
I think I'm just seeing the field better. I think my understanding of the defense last year, a lot of times I'm just like, all right, let's see how this goes, whoever comes open. But I really feel like I have, understanding of coverages that I'm seeing and thus what our best options are for those coverages. So just a better student of the game, I feel like, and I feel more prepared going out there on Sundays.
So, I mean, a lot of you are saying that he doesn't sound confident. That's as confident as he sounded in a while. So, to me, that's a declaration. Now, John Parker on YouTube asked, do I believe his declaration? I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that he's lying. Like, I don't think that he's actively lying to us. So, do I believe it? It's it's a tough sell to me. I'm not going to call him a liar, because I'm sure that he's trying to convince himself as much as he's trying to convince you and me and everybody else out there. Uh, so it's as strong a declaration as he's had in a while. It is an interesting position for him to take, but it's the position that he has to take right now. And the question is, does he deserve more time? The word that I get hung up on is deserve. Does he deserve more time? The answer, and the prompt is fair or foul. To the idea of deserve, no, I don't think he does deserve more time, but I do think that he should get more time because I know those things are conflicting in the position, and I know that you'll say, well, what do you mean he doesn't deserve more time, but he should get more time anyway? His performance is not one that deserves more time, right? His performance is one that deserves to sit his ass down on the bench and let Mason Rudolph 9 of 17 for 85 yards his way to a bunch of field goals and probably more wins than Will Levis will put together this year. But, and I say but for this reason and this reason alone, I have seen, and it's not just the Titans and Will Levis, I have seen NFL organizations ruin far more quarterbacks than develop quarterbacks. And I am seeing a player who is worse this year than he was last year with a whole new coaching staff and all kinds of new pieces and parts and all kinds of bright, shiny new things. I am seeing a player who is still displaying some of the issues that he had coming out of college, which is that he's a tick late on some of these throws, and a tick late in the NFL could kill you. It turns into an interception. But what's worse is that now I don't think he trusts what he sees. And I think there's pretty good evidence of that when you throw on the tape. Does he deserve more time to iron this thing out? Again, the word is deserve. I'm going to go with foul to the idea that he deserves more time. But I do think that they should go ahead and ride it out, at least for the next couple of weeks with him anyway, because you cannot bail on an experiment halfway through the season in a season where there's nothing else for you to lose. There is. You can lose more games. But at this point, that would only, and I can't imagine that I'm saying this, but for your draft position, that would only be a benefit. So if you're 1-4 and you're out of it before Halloween, and you're looking around saying, do we want to keep trotting this thing out, or do we just want to dink and dunk our way to maybe 2 more wins than we might otherwise have? I'm not in favor of bailing on if you're gonna do it, gut it out. Now, I'm not saying that you have to gut it out the entire season. If they go 1-6, if they're a disaster, if he's a disaster in Buffalo and then in Detroit, and they come home against the Patriots for Week 6, you got to give people a reason to show up. They're not going to show up, but you got to give people some reason to show up, and it's not going to be Will Levis. In fact, that's going to actively keep people away. So if they blow both of these games, and if they get wrecked in both of these games, because they are an 8.5-point underdog at Buffalo, and the last time I traveled to Buffalo to watch this team play, they lost 41-7 because Ryan Tannehill had an injury because Taylor Lewan blew out his knee on the first play, and Dennis Daly came in there, and the Dennis Daly experiment started, and you did not know what kind of hell that season would what kind of hell would unfold in that season until you saw it progressively depreciate week after week after week. I am in favor of giving him 2 more games. And again, I don't think he deserves 2 more games, but I'm in favor of doing it anyway. And this coaching staff is going to do it anyway. If it may not be 2 more games, if there is not some kind of breakthrough in Buffalo, it may be as soon as next week. But Right now, they are continuing to preach patience. Inside the facility, everybody's miserable. Front office, coaches, players. We went in for open locker room today. There was nobody there except for Dylan Radins and Peter Skoronsky and like Corey Levin. Bless Skoronsky and Radins for being willing to speak with us, because everybody else waited until like 5 minutes left before our time had expired before they showed up. So nobody wants to talk to us either. And I think with everything that's going on, it's not even about him. It's about the rest of the 52 players on this roster. Because once they have lost confidence in him, then that is when they need to pull him. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not even really about the coaching staff. It's about the rest of the locker room. Because if the rest of them check out on you and start making their offseason plans in November, or hell, at this point, before Halloween, like I mentioned, because we're already halfway through October and this thing, has felt like it's been over since Sunday. Once the locker room is out on him, then you make the move. Then you make the move. Then and only then. Then and only then do you make the move, because this is a player-driven league. It is not a fan-driven league. It is not a media-driven league. It is a money-driven league, but the money is generated because people like watching the players. So the players will tell you when it's time. I mean, they won't actively tell you, but you'll know when it's time to make a change, or will know when it's time to make a change, or the coaching staff will know when it's time to make a change based on when the locker room starts to feel like it's time for a change. I hate that. I hate that for them. I hate that for Levis. I really do. I am shocked that it has gone as badly as it has. But most people who watched him in college feel like they are ratified in their belief of he was not a good player in college. What made you think he was going to be a good NFL quarterback? And there's plenty of people who were, about what Levis was in college or better, who do not succeed at the NFL level. Turns out it's really, really hard. We can't even find 32 of these guys. 32 players in the entire world. We can't find 32 of them to play quarterback at a reasonably high level. But with everything that's happening, he gets 2 more games from me anyway. If the locker room gives him more than that, then so be it. If the locker room gives him less than that, then so be it. But it is a player-driven league for a reason. Kicks Good says he's already losing the locker room. You don't know that at all. Have you been in the locker room? If you have, I'm sorry. I must not have seen you. Or was that you picking up players' dirty towels to throw away in the laundry? Was that you sneaking around in the back of the locker room picking up used tape from today's practice? I must have missed you in there. You have no idea whether he's lost the locker room. It's always funny to me. And don't bring up the Ridley thing. Calvin Ridley, Johnny Chiefer says Calvin Ridley saying it's time now. No, he said no such thing. And Calvin Ridley would be more upset at you for putting words in his mouth based on what I know about Calvin Ridley. You know why? Because I talk to Calvin Ridley, I guess, 5 days a week at this point. 5 days a week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days a week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, 4 days a week is when I have the opportunity to speak to Calvin Ridley, and he has said no such thing. So, again, I'll say to you that the locker room is frustrated is one thing. The locker room is tired of losing, of course. Now, do they know that Levis is a big part of the reason that they're losing? Of course they do. God's child said, yes, he did in so many words, Buck. Again, no, he didn't. He never said the words, the quarterback is the problem. I'm done with the quarterback. He said, I need more targets early on in the game, which involves both the quarterback and the play caller. And he said, you'll hear from Calvin Ridley here in just a second. Calvin Ridley addressed this very same thing. So Calvin Ridley is no more frustrated about the situation than I am, or you are, or the coaching staff is. But do not put words in these players' mouths, and do not pretend like you know what's going on in their heads. You know no better about, nor do I, by the way. The only reason that I'm acting or saying that I have a little more insight on this is because I'm literally talking to them every day. I think it's those two things really piss me off as far as criticism when it comes to watching any sport. Play calling. Do you know anything about play calling? Maybe you know something, but do you know about their play calling, what a quarterback's progressions in any given passing play are? Do you know what the checks are? Do you even know if he's checking at the line of scrimmage? Do you know if he's communicating? Do you know if it's a guise as to whether or not they're trying to make it look like an audible at the line of scrimmage, or if the quarterback's just talking a lot? at the line of scrimmage. Play calling is the thing that people criticize the most and are by far and away the least qualified to criticize. The second, or arguably the first, you could flip-flop them, is what's going on in these players' heads, like you know these guys at all. How many of you know that Deshaun Watson was a pervert before Deshaun Watson was legally discovered to be a pervert? None of you. In fact, not even Mike Vrabel, who was sitting there in the Texans organization as a linebackers coach. Mike was talking about what a great guy it was to work with Deshaun Watson in Houston, and all of a sudden all this lawsuits turn up, and the Houston Texans organization has been giving him NDAs to give women to sign and all this other stuff. And you find out that one of the players that you thought was one of the best humans in the NFL at the time, and it's revisionist history to say that he wasn't, or that people didn't think that he was, you find out that he's actually a wretched human being. Actually a wretched human being. So there are less extreme examples than that, but that is something that makes me insane. Putting words in players' mouths because you are projecting how you feel about a certain situation, and media does this too. Hell, I'm pissed at ESPN for what they did to Calvin Ridley. They called it a tirade. They tried to turn it into an aggregation thing so it would be more interesting as a topic on First Take. He talked for 16 seconds. He said the F word twice, and all of a sudden that's a tirade. And by the way, his complaints, or his criticisms rather, were completely fair. Completely fair. So with all this stuff going on, please keep that in mind. Nor am I. You are not in the meeting rooms. We collectively are not in the meeting rooms to understand play calling. We are also not these guys' psychologists, so we don't actually know what's going on in their head. We only know what we are able to observe by being around them on a regular basis. So that's my soapbox for the day. And now we'll get back to talking about Levis. He does not deserve more time to get this opportunity to try and turn things around, but I do think that they should give it to him anyway. And that's where this thing is trending. That is where this thing will be for the foreseeable future. And once they lose once the coaching staff determines that the locker room is done with him, then and only then should they make that change. A to Z Sports Primetime we'll hear from Calvin Ridley here in just a second. A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by the wonderful people at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com, get your dream address without the stress. Don't sell without the intel that only the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators can provide. GaryAshton.com for more information. Okay, so Calvin Ridley, he had the comments on Sunday night. He clarified those comments today with us in the locker room. My question for you, as you watch Calvin Ridley and hear for Calvin Ridley for about the next 2 minutes, how many catches do you think Calvin Ridley will have on Sunday against the Bills?
On Sunday.
I think I was more frustrated about losing and not really helping in the beginning or anything. I wasn't frustrated with my coach, players, or anything. It was just want to help us lose if we're gonna lose. You know what I'm saying? That's all I was trying to say.
How do you get things collectively going for the passing offense now? What has to happen to get things clicking?
Just got to keep going to practice, keep throwing it at practice. I mean, that's all we can do. I mean, try it in the game, practice, just keep working. That's all we can do. Keep working.
Will said that he understands your frustration and that you two talked on Monday. We're able to kind of iron some things out.
Yeah, when you're frustrated, it just comes out. I mean, I was mad, but I wasn't frustrated at my teammates or anything. I'm just frustrated with losing. I want to win. I mean, I want to be a part of the winning. We got a good team. I mean, we should be winning. That's all I feel. And my emotions came out. But I believe in my team, myself, my coaches, and everything. I want to help us win, and that's all. I want to help.
What would a win on Sunday, on the road against a good team? What do you think that could do to kind of jumpstart you guys and get your season going?
It's a good team. It would be great, for us to feel good about ourselves. But it'll be good to see us run our offense, us play a full game, four-quarter game. Special teams plays really good, defense plays good, offense plays. It'll be good to see that, opposed to just going out there and beating them. We know they're a good team. We're a good team. We need to play a four-quarter game. It'll be good to see us do that.
Brian says over and over his intent is to get the ball to you. The plays are written.
And that's why I was a little frustrated with myself about that. Because yes, I mean you guys probably don't know, but yes, that's what he's trying to do for sure.
Calvin, and that's the thing.
So that's Calvin Ridley having, a little time to cool off and not in the heat of the moment and all these things, giving a totally rational explanation for what's going on. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hone in on the comment about him saying, even if we lose, I just want to help us lose, right? Because I I understand why that comment might raise some eyebrows or something like that, but you understand the point that he's trying to get across, right? He just wants to help the team. He wants to help the team. He wants to be involved. He wants to get in rhythm, all these different things. And that is the exact attitude that I want that human being to have. Now, does he need to catch the passes that are catchable? Because he did drop a big one on Sunday that could have helped them change the game. Has he had drops this season? Yes, but he's only had only two that qualify as drops on 27 targets. So Calvin Ridley's getting open. Calvin Ridley is not getting accurate passes thrown his way. Calvin Ridley has also not been heavily featured in the passing game. But I will tell you that Will Levis also has the opportunity to find Calvin Ridley within the concepts of the offense more often and has struggled to do that. So the primary issue is Levis. It starts and ends with Will Levis. They go, didn't I say it before the season started? They go as far as Will Levis goes. I said it with Tannehill. You could say it about any quarterback. They go as far as the quarterback goes. And right now, the quarterback isn't going. So how many catches will Ridley have on Sunday? Do I expect a major breakthrough against the Bills on the road? I mean, if they do that, that would be the most Titan shit ever. But I can't even say that about them anymore because they aren't that's a different version of the Titans. That's like the 2021 Titans that would win, or 2019 Titans that would win games that they had no business in. All the Titans do now is lose. So I don't know that it would be the most Titans thing ever to go to Buffalo and win this game, because I think that's something that people should have stopped saying basically 3 years ago. A to Z Sports Prime Time is presented by the great folks at Zen Sports. Bet on all your favorite major sports with the Zen Sports app. Promo code ATOZTN gets you in on all the action, up to $100 on your no danger first wager at zensports.com. Okay, so with everything that's happening, Mike Nolan says, what about his shoulder? He says his shoulder's fine. So, he said he's not quite 100%, but he said something about the shoulder. This was something that irked me a little bit upon review. He said that he felt like he could have thrown him a less interceptable ball on the interception that he threw in the direction of Calvin Ridley if his shoulder was healthy on Sunday night when we asked him about it. And that just to me is an excuse. Like, if you're healthy enough to play, you're expected to perform. I don't want to hear about it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not that I don't want to hear about it, but that's a bit reductive. But don't tell me. I'd like to think if I'm 100%, I make that throw, because if you're out there, you got to perform, man. That's like Jeff Simmons shooting up his ankle for the entire second half of 2022. He wasn't the same player. He wasn't nearly as effective. But he went out there, and you're expected to perform. That's what it is. That's Peter Skoronski going out there after an appendectomy. Are you out there? Okay. Well, then I'm going to evaluate you as if you're playing football. And even if you're dealing with the appendectomy, I understand it's a reasonable excuse or a reasonable explanation, but there is only so much time that people are willing in a production-based business like football to let explanations or to allow excuses to continue to be explanations, right? And like I said, it's reductive, but that's the sport. They don't have time. People's jobs depend on your ability to perform or be available, and availability is part of your ability to perform. All right, whose stock rose, whose stock fell this week in sports? Let's talk about it. Rising and falling is the thing. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch in the comment section. We'll talk about it. Whose stock rose, whose stock fell? Speaking of things that are worth paying attention to, even if this football team tanks. Not tanks, or bottoms out, let's say, because tanking would indicate that they're doing it intentionally, and I think they're just bad, not on purpose. The offensive line didn't allow a sack for the first time in 3 years. I asked Dylan Radins about that today, and this was Dylan Radins, who's playing pretty well at right guard.
Brian was real complimentary of how you kind of settled in at the guard position, how you guys are starting to see the dividends of that, not just individually, but as a unit. What's kind of clicking for you as the season's gone on?
I'm just taking what Brian has or what Bill has been coaching, and just been taking it all the critiques and stuff. I've been learning a lot from him as a coach, and just been trying to do exactly what he's been telling me to do every single day. And he's been critical, and I felt like I've been able to grow a lot with that. And I think there's a lot of growth left to do, and a lot of improvement left. And we'll see where it goes. But I'm happy with the improvement so far, and I'm just ready to keep riding it out. So.
first game in 3 years, I think a Titans offensive line hasn't allowed a sack. How big a deal is that for you?
Wow, I had no idea it was that, but obviously as an offensive line, if you have a game without any sacks, I mean, that's something to be proud of. So, yeah, hopefully we can keep stacking those days and those games together because, we'd love to replicate that.
How effective has the run game as a unit been for you guys, and how much are you trying to kind of like lean on your strengths as you work to fine-tune the other parts of the passing game and things like that?
Obviously, I was an offensive lineman. You'd love to run the ball every single play. I mean, you want to stay out of pass pro as much as possible, and I think we average over 5 yards a carry against the Colts, so anytime you're able to do that, that's going to be huge. As an offensive lineman, you pride yourself on the run, and whenever you're able to do that, we want to keep stacking those plays and keep stacking those games where you're able to do that. So.
That's Dylan Radins in the locker room. Stock up, Dylan Radins. Stock up Titans offensive line. One game, I get it, but you can only get better if you start with one game and continue to build upon it. Bills will be a test. Bills have a lot of different defensive looks that they'll throw at them. Certainly, they're gonna circle Levis as a blood in the water opportunity and put some pressure on him. So this will be a tough test for the offensive line. But I thought that Levis had adequate protection, which showed up in some spots. He did have adequate protection. He wasn't pressured that often. He wasn't sacked at all. He had to get up there and ask us whether he got sacked in that game or not at all. But any sign for positive growth on any of these units, besides you just squandering a defense that belongs on a much better football team, it matters, because if it's Levis behind them next year, or Shadur Sanders, or whomever this team ends up drafting a quarterback or getting to play quarterback for them in 2025, that offensive line is going to matter. Whether they're good this year or not good this year is also a part of the evaluation. So it's not just Levis that's under evaluation right now. It's everything that they put together to try and figure out, all right, what can we keep and what do we need to replace? Hennessy says, Buck, stop bringing up Deshaun Watson trash and not the Patriots owner. Getting happy endings. Everyone craps on the dude. But the only one who was investigated by the FBI was Robert Kraft. LMAO, don't be biased, bro. I'm not. Robert Kraft's a pervert for that too. Deshaun Watson is actively a terrible human being with more sexual assault allegations against him than he has touchdown passes for the Cleveland Browns. It's damn near 30 women that came out and complained. And, the other one is an old man who paid for a happy ending at a massage parlor in Jupiter, Florida. Does that make them any better than one another? I don't know. They're both disgusting for it. I just happen to bring up Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson is the most egregious example of, hey, you didn't know shit about that guy. And all of you, and including myself, thought Deshaun Watson was a completely fine, upstanding citizen. And then he turns out to be a wretched human being. So, I mean, just don't, what I hate more than not bringing up every player who's had a sexual, or every person that's had a sexual assault type of situation. I don't know, was Kraft a sexual assault situation, or was it qualified as something different? Maybe it
was a sting
operation, a sting operation by the FBI. I mean, Watson's might as well have been. How many grand juries did Robert Kraft appear before? The thing that I hate more than anything when it comes to this stuff is not the acts themselves, are of course horrendous, and the fact that women are on the wrong end of these things at every turn, being taken advantage of, is the thing that pisses me off the most. But what I also hate is whataboutism. Well, you didn't bring up this. What do you want me to go through and make a list for you every day, every time that I bring it up? I will, because there's plenty of shitty people. Just because you're a good football player doesn't make you a good human being. Or a professional athlete, or whatever line of work. There's plenty of people in broadcasting who have had shitty situations. There's plenty of people who have been plumbers or truck drivers or whatever. I can go through any industry that you want and come up with any list of names who have been accused over the course of however long. But don't do, well, what about this? What about that? No, I gave you an example, and that's the example, and it's a good one. That's going to do it for us tonight. 3 hours of radio tomorrow, 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Thanks for hanging out. We always appreciate you guys spending some time here with us. And radio show is going to be fun tomorrow. I'm not sure why. Oh, Bert, are we having an accordion? Did we figure that out? Probably not. I have no idea. We haven't had a guest on the radio show all week because we've been having so much fun just talking about this football team, and talking about the balls and Bama coming up, and talking about Vanderbilt and their success, and wondering if a professional sports franchise in the state of Tennessee will ever be good again. Nashville SC missed the playoffs. Preds are 0-3. Titans are 1-4. Thank God the Grizzlies are coming back, because if they disappoint me to I will have no hope for the state of professional sports in this particular state. Either way, radio show. How about that for a tease? See you tomorrow.
Go home! Go home!